Today we're going to begin section 3, graphs of inequalities. We're going to identify the graph of an inequality given the two different variables. In our exit slip, this is the only problem where graphing calculator is required. You can pause the video to solve, and this is a review from section 1. You will see that number 1 is the only one where the given ordered pair is a solution to the inequality. So in our notes today, we're going to be figuring out how to graph each of the inequalities. So all of these are going to be in the exact same form, or we can get them into the same form. So we're going to have y, and then some inequality, and then mx plus b. So m, once again, this is my slope. That's what we're moving. B, this is always where our y-intercept is. And this is where we begin. So for shading, we're going to be taking a look at the inequality symbol. So for above, it's when we have greater than or equal to. For below, we have less than or equal to. And if you check out the way that I wrote down the word below with that capital L, it kind of looks like the less than symbol. So this is a way that we can figure out how to decipher when we're shading above or below. The second thing that's important when we're graphing inequality is taking a look at the lines. So we're either going to have a solid line or a dotted line. For a solid line, this is any time that we have an equal to sign, so greater than or equal to or less than or equal to, whereas a dotted line does not have a line underneath, so just greater than or less than. So solid line has an equal to sign, an extra line. Dotted line, no equal to sign, so we have spaces. So given the inequality s is less than or equal to 2c plus 460. So we could take a look. C is along the x-axis, and s is along the y-axis. So we have s is less than or equal to 2c plus 460. So 460, this is my y-intercept, so it intercepts at 460. We're going up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. That's a over 1, not a t. All right, so I know that we are shading for less than or equal to. We're shading below the line. So therefore, I'm going to go ahead and shade below this line. So since I shaded below this line, that means that any inequality or any point in this shaded region will be a solution to the inequality, and it's called a half plane. All right. Given the inequality, f is less than or equal to negative 551.7 u plus 881.5. Again, we have u is along the x-axis, f is along the y-axis, and then based on the inequality, we are shading below. So we're going to be shading this region below. So any point in that region is a solution to the inequality. If we look up above, all right, for number 2, it said that 2, 500 was not a solution. So we got a no. So if we were to actually plot the point 2, 500, notice it is not in my shaded region, just as we found above that it was not part of the solution when we inputted 2, 500 into this exact inequality. And then finally we have given the inequality 700j plus 600s is greater than 3,300. So based on this inequality and the fact that the line, the symbol right in front of my y value, which is s is in front of the y, all right, this symbol will not change that sign. So therefore, we're going to have above. We're going to be shading above. If you take a look at the entrance slip, we were to plot the point -2, 4, So negative 2 comma 4. Notice that in the entrance slip, negative 2 comma 4 was not a solution when we inputted negative 2 comma 4 into J and S, just as this point is not part of my shaded region. So as we continue on, we're going to be putting all of these into the form y equals mx plus b, except for instead of the equal to sign, we're going to see that inequality. We're going to be shading it, figuring out the lines. The slope and the y-intercept are also going to help us figure out whether or not the multiple choice problem is a solution or not. So for number 1, we have, which of the following is the graph of g is greater than or equal to 7? So for number 1, checking out the g, so g is up here along the y-axis. So this is the same as saying y is greater than or equal to 7. Now this means that we need to have the line going through my dotted line or solid line. In this case, because of the equal to sign, I know that it's going to be a solid line. So we can go ahead and cross off A, cross off B. And based on the direction, we have that we're shading above the line or towards the positive side of the line. So shading above the line would mean that my answer is D. So we had a line going through the y-axis at 7, shading above, and a solid line. Number 2, we have C is less than or equal to 90. So for number 2, C is along the x-axis. So this is the same as saying x is less than or equal to 90. So we need a line going through the x-axis at 90. So we can go ahead and cross off A and cross off B because both of these go through the y-axis at 90. And we need to go through the x-axis. So based on the direction of the inequality, we're shading below the line. All right, and since we're shading below the line, this is the same as saying negative, all right, the negative direction. So if we were to shade below the line in the negative direction, that would be answer choice C. All right, for the rest of these problems, we're going to be taking a look at the y-intercept, the slope, and if the inequality sign is going to change. So we can figure out if the inequality sign is going to change because as we wrote down in section 1 and starred in section 1, we're going to check the symbol in front of the variable to see if we flip the inequality. So for all of these, we're going to be solving for y because we want to get in the form of y equals mx plus b. So let's check and see for each of these whether or not we are flipping the sign. So for number 3, the sign is positive, so therefore it's going to stay the same, no flipping. So we have less than or equal to, which means two things. I'm going to have a solid line, and we're going to shade below. So since we're shading below, we can go ahead and cross off A and D. And then for number 3, I know that if we were to get this in the form of y equals mx plus b, we would have a negative slope. Because b is the same as saying x. So since we have a negative slope, my answer choice is B because it has a negative slope. Number 4, I'm going to change this so we have g plus 1 over 2, u is less than or equal to 8. So based on this symbol, my inequality is not flipping, so we have the less than or equal to sign, so we have a solid line, and we're shading below. So since we're shading below, we can go ahead and cross off A and cross off D. The next thing that I noticed is that G is the same as X, and U is the same as Y. The only difference between B and C is the slope and where the y-intercept is. For me, I think it's going to be easier to figure out that y-intercept because it has to do with this number 8. So if I were to get this 1/2 to the other side, I can multiply by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2 over 1. And so we have a y-intercept at 8 times 2, which is 16. So So since the y-intercept is at 16, my answer choice is C. I'm going to go ahead and pause this video and I will be showing the work as we go through each problem, but I'm not going to talk about the work. For number 5, we have t is greater than or equal to 1/2 m. Number 5, my answer is A. Number 6, we have 3m plus 2p is greater than or equal to 30. For number 6, my answer choice is A. For number 7, my answer choice is D. For number 8, we have to figure out which of the following is the graph of 5s minus 3t is greater than or equal to 15. So this is the first one where the symbol is going to change the direction of this inequality, because whenever we divide or multiply by a negative number, we have to flip the sign. So it's going to change from greater than or equal to less than or equal to. So now I'm shading below this line. And since we're shading below this line, we can go ahead and cross off A, cross off D. I can divide each side by -3. When I divide by -3, that tells us that the y-intercept is at -5. So crossing the graph at -5 is letter choice B. For number 9, we have to figure out P plus Q is less than 7. For number 9, they both have the same y-intercepts. Then I had to take a look at the slope. And if I move the P, which is in the same place as X, when I move the P to the other side, we now have a negative slope. And then finally, number 10, which of the following is the graph of -2m plus 3n greater than 12. Taking a look at the y-intercept in number 10 helps me figure out that A is the correct answer. And that concludes the lesson for today.